It is a terrible time for federal student loans, I know, but we are here today to hopefully help you sift through some of the information that you're hearing, tell you what to worry about, what not to worry about. And in this episode, some recent happenings that definitely impact you if you have federal student loans, specifically if you're trying to pay them using income-driven repayment plans. In the second half of this episode, we'll share some very brief ways that you can potentially fight back or at least be aware of people who are already fighting back for you. So, what do I mean in terms of updates? In the last episode, I think the last episode, we talked about a recent order or memo that was distributed from the Department of Education to federal student loan borrowers, or I should say federal student loan servicers, telling them that for the next 3 months at least, they should not process any applications that have been submitted for consolidated loans. They should not allow any borrowers on income-driven repayment plans to recertify their income. They should not process any new applications for any income-driven repayment plan. They also took the online applications down for these various programs. It was just a real mess. And I shared that I don't think that they would be able to do this for a full 3 months. But even in the interim, there was a group that I was really worried about. And that group was people who are on certain income-driven repayment plans who are supposed to recertify their income, but were not allowed to. The reason that group concerned me, or I should say I had concern for that group, is because one element of those plans is if you don't recertify your income, they will keep you on the plan, but they'll shift your payment to what it would take to pay off your loans in 10 years from the date you started repayment. And this has led to just some really frightening moments for people who have been getting letters that their student loan payment is about to just explode, especially if they're not aware that this is how these income-driven repayment plans work if you don't recertify. Matter of fact, if you're looking on screen, there's an article that we'll put in the show notes from the College Investor. You all may recall that we've had Robert Farrington on both this podcast and our separate New Money, New Problems podcast, Robert Farrington being the founder of the College Investor. But it's just talking about people who are reporting these letters that are just telling them that their payment's going to jump from a couple $100s a month to a few $1,000s a month. It's been really crazy. So yesterday, the Department of Education or the Federal Student Aid Office released some updated guidance to give more clarification on how they're going to handle this period when it comes to them not allowing you to get on new plans. But they also made an announcement that was not in that memo that was leaked. And that announcement is that they're extending the deadline for when people need to recertify their loans to at least February of 2026. So this is something that we saw very regularly in the Biden administration. It's the first time we've seen it in the Trump administration. So I want to make sure you have an understanding of what it means to say at least February 2026. As a recap, when you have an income-driven repayment plan, yes, you have to update your income every single year so they can calculate your payment, but you update it at the same time every single year, the same month of the year. So you can have an IDR anniversary date. And if that anniversary date comes before February of 2026, let's say that it's January of each year, then this functionally means that you won't have to update your income until January of 2027. It's not saying that everyone has to update their income in February of 2026. It's saying that if you were due to recertify your income before that date, you don't have to worry about it. They're kicking the can down the road so that if in our example, you were to recertify in January, now you won't have to recertify till January of 2027. But if, for example, your IDR anniversary date is typically in October, then in October of 2026, you would have to recertify. As the article says, if you're reading, it says for borrowers impacted by the pause, this is a big win, as some had already reported seeing their monthly payments rise significantly. So this is what I was hoping they would do in the midst of all this chaos. Instead of having people just have their plans default to the 10-year option, at least say, okay, we're not going to let you recertify, but we're also going to let you continue on the payment that you are currently making. And it looks like they are doing that. Now, there were some additional elements of this announcement that you need to be made aware of based on your current status. So if you're on the SAVE plan or you're currently on administrative forbearance, there's nothing in this announcement from the Department of Education that changes that. If you are on the SAVE plan, not only are your loans in forbearance, but they had already extended the date that you had to recertify your loans. So that's not been impacted at all. If you're on any of the other plans, income-based repayment, pay as you earn, those are the ones that are really impacted by this, where they're saying not until February 2026. What they did make clear in this announcement is they have not opened the applications again for those income-driven repayment plans. So even though they're for people who are already on the plans, a bit of relief, they're not giving relief for someone who may be on, save plan and trying to switch to pay as you earn or trying to switch to income-based repayment. They have still blocked those applications to this point. Now, they did make a distinction for people who had already submitted an application for income-driven repayment plan before this freeze went into effect. So if they had an income-driven repayment plan application that had been received, then it was technically in process. And what they're going to do is they're going to automatically put those loans into forbearance. For example, if I was on the save plan prior to them making this announcement, I had tried to apply to get on the pay as you earn plan. They're going to basically just say, automatically, you don't have to make payments. We're putting you into a forbearance. However, if there's an application that has not been received, then it's basically pending and they're not going to process those applications. So it's a small distinction between the two statuses based on when you applied and whether they received it. An interesting point to that, however, is if you're looking at this, it says for borrowers who submitted that application before the processing pause, so those ones whose applications were received, it says you will be in a processing forbearance until application processing resumes. To me, that's interesting because we've talked about in the past that there's like a 2-month period where if your loans are in processing forbearance, you do get credit towards things like income-driven repayment and public service loan forgiveness usually. So that has been something that's been helpful for people who submitted an application to have their student loans consolidated or to sign up for a payment plan, and it takes them 3 months or 4 months to actually process it. 2 of those months or up to 2 of those months could count towards your credit. They are not making clear in this announcement whether they're going to follow that procedure of giving credit towards those programs for people who are stuck in this processing forbearance. So while some of this, I wouldn't call it good news, but it's better news. Hey, if I'm on that payment plan, I don't have to worry about it just jumping overnight.